Be Curious Cats. I know I haven't made a video in a bit, so I thought I'd fire off a quick video here. And a lot has happened since last time I spoke with you guys. We've had the Black Lives Matter movement and Antifa rising up and all kinds of protests in the US. As you've probably noticed, a lot of the people started waking up to the false numbers that they were pushing with the COVID narrative and all of that. And people started asking questions like, why are we shutting down our entire economy when that's causing way more harm than actually just opening it and keeping the economy open and keeping businesses making money and families fed. But instead they chose to shut down the entire economy and push a lot of people into poverty. A lot of people had to give up their businesses and whatnot. So as soon as people started waking up to what was going on with that, they quickly shifted the narrative and tried to create a race war. And they do that by targeting the most the community that's really challenged the most, which is the poor Black community in the US, where a lot of these people have been through tough times. They've been through slavery, they've been through all kinds of stuff in the past. So there's a lot of anger and hurt there, and it's pretty easy to trigger that community and to push the victim mentality on them and to get them revolting. And that's what these elite want. They want people to start revolting. They want chaos because it allows them to increase their power. As soon as there's the big protests, then all of a sudden they can come in and, push in military martial law. They can increase their power, and the chaos just creates more divide. And basically it shifts the focus away from the true problem, which is the class war of the super rich elite that own everything, that are enslaving the rest of us through their debt money. So if you've noticed, it's all this Black Lives Matter and talking about white privilege and all this. Why don't we hear anything about elite privilege? That's the true privilege. These guys are flying around in private jets. They own 20 of these massive mansions. They have unlimited access to free money that they print out of thin air. And that's the true privilege. You think that, white privilege, you look at your average white guy. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but look around. I mean, maybe if you're in New York, sure, there's a lot of white fellows that are doing pretty well, but where I am in small communities and smaller cities in British Columbia, Canada, the white guys are suffering. Most of them are on the street addicted to heroin now. Very few are thriving. Most of them are just pushing brooms as laborers on these construction sites, working for the big money, these big developers, the people that have access to the money that's being printed by the central banks and that are essentially buying up everything right now. So this is the true thing that's going on, and they're shifting the focus by trying to create a race war and further pushing this divide and conquer by trying to get the blacks against the whites, and the whites getting annoyed with the blacks and all the protesting and the looting and the violence and all of that. But meanwhile, they're shifting the focus from themselves. They're the true enemy here. I don't even like to use that term enemy, but they are the oppressor. They're the ones that are keeping us all enslaved by forcing us to use their debt money. We're all working for these government currencies to try and get by in our lives, to get food, to get shelter, and to provide for our families. But the money that we're so busy working for is constantly losing value. So the US dollar alone has lost over 95% of its value since its creation. If you don't believe me, you can go and refer to the charts. I'll maybe make a future video just outlining some of these charts so you can see for yourself. All the numbers are there. They're available to anyone. That's why it's so important to educate yourself, and why I talk a lot about currency and money, because that's really what it comes down to. They're controlling us through the money. And I can tell by the way that they censor my content. Very few people see my content, and I know it's because of what I'm talking about. They don't want this information getting out. They want us fighting amongst ourselves. They want the feminists hating the men hating the women, the gays hating the straights, and vice versa, and the blacks versus the whites, and all of this. But really, the true oppressor here are these elite families. They're the ones that are enslaving us. The banking cartel, all these, head CEOs of these major corporations that own everything and have access to this banker money that they essentially create out of thin air, and now they're buying up everything. So they force a lockdown on the economy. A lot of companies had a lot of debt out. They didn't have savings. And so they can only make it 1 or 2 months before they have to go bankrupt. And so a lot of these companies are folding now because they can't survive very long, because they took on too much debt and they became super fragile and exposed to this. And so as they fold, then this banking cartel, this elite class, the oppressors, come in and they buy everything with this phony money that they print out of thin air. They don't have to work for it like you and I. They don't, and if they borrow it, they don't even have to pay the interest like you and I. If we go in and borrow money, if we're fortunate enough to have access to a loan like that, they're going to charge us 5, 6, 7, 8%, depending on your personal situation. This banking cartel goes directly to the central banks, and they're borrowing at 0% interest right now. And then with that, they're able to buy up all the businesses, all the true assets. So the elite class are buying up all the gold. They own most of the gold now. They own most of the silver. They own most of the businesses. They're buying up the stock market now. So they're buying up, and they're owning all of these major stocks like Tesla. You look at Tesla's stock, it's unbelievable. It went from, in 5 years, I think it was $180. It's up over $1,000 now. That's just insane, because this elite class is just buying up everything that they believe is going to survive in the future. So it's really not a fair game. It's completely rigged, and they don't have to take any risk. When you can just borrow at 0% interest, and there's no timeline to pay it back. You don't have interest accumulating, so you can just come in and buy whatever you want with that money that you borrow, with no risk, no interest attached, all that. And meanwhile, the working class, the middle class, which is getting squeezed out and now pushed into poverty, is essentially going to be forced to sell most of our whatever assets they had left. The middle class already had very little left, but they're going after the boomers' money right now. The boomers actually had a lot of wealth that they created. They were the most prosperous generation to ever come through, and the elite class want that money. So a lot of the boomers, they did well. They made a lot of money when money still had some buying power, and there was a lot of prosperity that was created. So the boomers, by the time they reached age 39, they had accumulated 22% of the world's wealth. And the new millennials, now the oldest millennial is 39 years old. That's me. And yeah, our generation has only accumulated 2% of the world's wealth. So we've accumulated 1/10 of what the boomers did by their same age. So this is the divide that this phony money system is creating. It's making us all poor, and they're pushing for socialism now because that gives them more power. It gives the government more power, and they have the uneducated general masses believing that socialism is going to be their savior, that, oh, you're going to get free education, you're going to get free handouts from the government. Nothing's free. Socialism is all designed to increase government power, increase government control. They're going to feed you a few breadcrumbs to make you think you're getting something for free, but in reality, nothing's free. It all comes from taxation, which is theft. It comes from money printing, which is also a form of taxation and theft because it devalues the currency that we're all forced to use to buy our goods and services and to feed our families with, to pay for our shelter with, and all that. And This is how they're eliminating the middle class. Their objective is to buy and own everything. They want to own all the real estate, all the businesses, all the utilities, all the airlines, all of the big corporations. You'll see it's already happening right now. And this is what's going down right now with this forced economic shutdown, where they forced all these businesses to go under, and they're trying to distract everyone from what the true what's really happening right now. This is like really critical what's going on, this wealth transfer and this blatant robbery from the middle class. And they're distracting us by pushing this BS narrative of creating a race war. This is not what's at the forefront. This is not what's the most important thing. You'll see everyone's just highly manipulated by social media right now. As soon as social media stops talking about it, it's going to go away. No one's going to care about the Black Lives Matter movement. Very few are. The only reason they're paying attention right now is because social media is telling them to. They're saying, Black Lives Matter, if you don't post about this, you're racist. And people are inherently, they have low self-esteem. So they buy this narrative. They think, oh, if I don't post about this, people are going to think I'm racist. But you'll see, as soon as the narrative shifts on social media, all these people that were making a big deal about the BLM movement, they're not going to say anything. So you can tell it's all phony, it's all BS. Because if they really cared about the BLM movement, they'd be talking about it when the mainstream media wasn't talking about it at all. The only reason they're talking about it is because they're highly manipulated by these social media platforms, and they're playing right in to the narrative that the elite class want them to. It's all a distraction from what's really going on. And what's really going on is a major theft from this elite class. They're robbing the middle class right now by forcing our businesses to shut down. And when that happens, then we can no longer afford what little assets we had. So people thought they owned real estate. A lot of these people never owned it. They signed a contract with the banking cartel to make mortgage payments on it. But the second you can't afford it, you might have been paying that mortgage down for 20 years. You miss one payment, they come in and they'll repossess that home. They'll take it back. So did you ever really own it? And even if you managed to be one of the select few that actually managed to pay off your entire mortgage, you still don't own it because they're still robbing you through property tax. It's a joke. These guys are complete crooks. It's all slavery. All government currency is debt money. It's modern day slavery. They don't want you to know about it. That's why they highly censor stuff like Bitcoin and alternative currencies like gold and silver. And they try and distract everyone from the true issue. Why aren't we talking about elite privilege? You think that white privilege, you think the whites have privilege? They might be, slightly higher up in the slavery system, but we're all slaves. Unless you're one of these, gangsters working for the banking cartel and in with this elite inner class of deep state cabal mofos, then you're a slave. I'm sorry, but you're a slave. You're working for fucking debt money. And pardon my language, I get really worked up. People just don't see it. And it frustrates me. Everyone's so easily distracted and busy listening to the mainstream narrative and all this crap they're pushing on social media, and no one's talking about the true issues. So that's the rant for today. Apparently I had a little bit to say about that, but don't get me wrong, of course Black Lives Matter. Every life matters. That's the thing. And they're trying to push this thing that if you're white, you're inherently racist. That's a bunch of BS. I don't buy it for 1 second. We're all in this together. We need to unite, the blacks, the whites, the women, the men, the gays, the straights. Let's stop buying into this divide and conquer narrative, and let's unite and realize who the true enemy is. And it's our masters, our slave masters, the money printers, the banking cartel. They own all the media. They own the social media networks. They own Hollywood. They own the banks. They own it all. They've got us enslaved, and they are the true enemy. So stop listening to their lies, stop getting distracted by their BS narratives, and let's recognize the true enemy here, and let's start building our own community from the ground up and creating radical self-reliance and anti-fragility amongst ourselves by getting strong in our own community, by growing food, by, if we can, stop using their money, trade in gold and silver if you can, trade in Bitcoin, trade in alternative currencies, and just do our best to get out of the system. I know it's impossible to fully get out of it, but we can do our best. We can do our best to, stop using their debt money and all of that, and just to grow our networks and trade amongst ourselves, and just really stop giving them any time. I've just had my computer basically turned off for the last few weeks. I don't want to get programmed with this bullshit. So that's my tactic. That's why I've been a little bit absent on the videos. I'm going to leave it at that. This has been quite a long rant, but I hope you guys are all doing well out there. I hope you're prospering and that you're getting strong and teaming up with your friends and family and getting a plan, because this winter could be really hard. This takeover is nuts. I think they're going to have another major lockdown this fall where they really push to take control of a lot of whatever's left. They want to bankrupt the rest of the businesses that have survived this first phase, and I've heard that there's going to be major food shortages and stuff like that. So it can't hurt us to get prepared. Let's get our freezers full. Let's spend this summer getting ready, downsizing your businesses, getting rid of any expenses you don't need. Do you really need all these subscriptions? Do you need 2-3 cars? Maybe you can downsize. Maybe your family can share a car. Maybe just go to a pay-as-you-go cell phone plan. You don't need to spend $200 a month on your cell phone. There's a lot of these expenses that we can just start to cut down, and just prepare. Start putting some money aside, because things are going to get tough. And if you don't have much money, then your best bet is to start investing in food. Buy a bunch of non-perishable items, maybe can some food this summer, and freeze a bunch of berries or whatever you can do some fishing, some hunting, grow some food, all that kind of stuff, and just create a little buffer for you and your family, so that if this second wave comes, or when it comes, you're not one of these people that are totally unprepared, paying top dollar, waiting in line, to get in, and all the prices are soaring, and all you have is a bunch of debt. Just do your best, get out of debt, work really hard, make some money, and pay off your debt, and start stockpiling some food. Hopefully you can get at least 6 months worth of food, just in case things get rough this winter. And with that being said, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you guys are doing well. Thanks again for tuning in and watching the video. I hope that you can like and share this, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. With that being said, God bless. I love you guys. Take care and prosper.